see through it, and so I'm calling it out. I'm just calling it out. That's what I'm going to do here. And so, Mark was the guy just like, oh, Mikey, yeah, you're at a 10-mile marathon, huh? That's great, buddy. And then what else have you said? Your softball swing, Mike, I bet you did have a great – like, no, I'm not going to allow that anymore. So you keep bringing these lies to the show. I have no other choice but to call you out on them.
Did I just hear a lip smack?
Yeah, you did hear a lip smack, and I will tell you, Stoke, forever, I just took Mike at his word. Like, I'm one of those trustworthy guys. You come in, and, I've seen the light now. You have come in, and you have basically, created the big board of lies, and I got to tell you, there's quite a few things on there that I'm really starting to second guess. 9 years I've been with Mike, and I'm like, how much of it has all been a lie? How much of these 9 years has just been a lie?
Well, before you go all the way down this road and burn a bridge, you need to understand, you need to know what Stokes said earlier today. He's going to be on as part of our NFL draft coverage roundtable with Philip Lindsay and Zach By at 4 o'clock at the Sportsbook Bar and Grill DTC. Our NFL draft coverage brought to you by Carrier Colorado. But he said he's really looking forward to reuniting with Zach, and that it's going to be special, and it was special, and he's looking for it to be special again.
I'm actually hoping Philip gets sick, and so I'll just go in and do the whole 4 hours, and it's just me and him. I am.
How's that make you feel?
I can't.
How's that make you feel, Mark?
This man is a saint.
Does it have anything to do, Stoke, with that you can trust Zach? Like, you can trust him at his word? Like,
exactly.
It's not going to be a bunch of BS,
right.
The big board of BS. Like, you know that when Zach says,
I want to pound his ass.
He walked uphill both ways to work at the grocery store before he, did whatever else he was doing, selling cars and then trivia.
The grocery store shelves also, yes.
All in one day.
All in one day. Before he did all that, walked uphill. Yes, his word was his bond, right? And with Evans, I just can't trust this guy yet. So you're exactly right. But, Mark, I gave you a lot of credit earlier also, which Mike isn't going to say, because Mikey over here started talking about football players, the hockey players, and Mike called me a hypocrite. This is like to start the show at 6:04 in the morning. Hypocrite. Right. He called me not being honest. He called me a liar. Talking about Gabe returning, because I said, hey, this might be a little bit of a distraction with what we've seen the last 2 games. They haven't been able to finish. And then Mike went down the road of you and Mark always talked about football players being able to, all of a sudden when the ball snapped, you put everything behind you. And then he said, well, you must be a hypocrite, right, Mike?
Well, that's
I said, I need Mark. I said, I need Mark over here to stand up for me. I need my teammate here.
Well, isn't it true, Mark, you've said, and Stokes certainly hasn't tried to push back on what you've said, the idea that all this bulletin board material and all the talk during the week and all the emotion and revenge and all that kind of stuff is great during the week, but once you kick it off and that first hit is administered, now it just becomes a football game. And my point about last night was anybody who's trying to say that Gabe Landeskog's return was a distraction that caused the Avalanche to lose this game, I think is bogus, because I think once the immediate emotion of his return kind of waned a little bit, guess what broke out? A hockey game. And all the guys on the Avalanche bench were far more concerned with going out and doing their job and trying to win a hockey game than they were distracted by the fact that 92 was back out there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't think once the puck drops. By the way, did Gabe start?
He did.
Did Gabe start
the
game?
Here's what they did.
How'd that work?
Here's what they did. Right. Okay. First, he was introduced, starter. There was kind of a ceremonial feel to it, that he was out there with McKinnon, Makar, Taves, Mikko Rantanen was out there as well. So it was kind of like, hey, welcome back. First shift, he goes, delivers a good hit on Mikko Rantanen, gets the crowd into it. It was a good hockey play, and then after that, he got moved back down to the third line, and that's where he played the rest of the night.
So
it was a one-shift thing.
So it was a one-shift ceremonial. There is where Stoke and I were 100% right yesterday.
Yep.
You don't do that to your hockey club.
Yep.
You don't.
All right. So you're saying that Gabe's return was a distraction that helped lead to a loss. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm saying, like, hey, he comes out there pregame. People are hyped about Landy. I don't think you change your lineup to just put Landy in there. I don't like it makes it bigger than the game. His return becomes bigger than the game then.
Yep. So
again,
let me ask the question.
Your regular guys.
Did they lose the game because they made too much of a big deal of Gabe's return?
They didn't lose the game because of that. But I just think when you do that stuff, you mishandle it. That's all. You wouldn't, again, you don't bring in backups to start the game in football because it'll be cute. You don't do that
in the playoffs too. You know? And so you asked, did that make them lose? I can tell you this for a fact, 100% fact, Mike. Okay, it didn't help them win, did it? It sure didn't lead to a win. So I don't know if it led to the loss or is the reason why they lost. All I know is that it didn't help them win last night because you know what? They didn't win. They lost.
So you were thinking that Gabe's return would directly lead to a win? You thought that was a possibility?
Would lead to a win?
That his return would directly lead to a win?
No. I just like Mark said, and Mark's all over it. When all of a sudden you're in the playoffs, you're in Game 3 of a series, you have the return of Gabe, which is a great story. It's awesome. I get it. Like, Mark's fired up about it. I am too. But then you change the lineup. It's kind of feels like, this is,
hockey teams change lineups all the time. And you're making it sound like that.
I'm just telling you.
That
and
lines are etched in stone.
All the buzz and all the talk is about his return. And it hasn't gone well. And then also,
they mixed up the lines from Game 2 to number 3.
There was no big
other lines.
There was no big boost when it came to the energy on the ice. There was no all of a sudden Gabe returned and that team was flying around. They're getting shots on goal. You look up and Dallas is out shooting them. That never happens. Early in the game, it's like, okay, what is going on here? They don't look like the same team. Dallas is taking it to them at home. The return of Gabe, why? What is going on here? So you have to ask the questions. I think that's only fair to ask the question. And certainly that all this talk hasn't helped. It hasn't helped the Avs. They're down 2-1, and they haven't been able to finish. So you have to ask yourself why. What is going on here? And that's the frustrating part.
Here's the good news, though, Stoke. Here's the good news. It was an overtime loss, so I think you get a point, right? So, they still can win. They could still win the playoffs in points, right? Can't they still win the playoffs in points? So even if they lose the series 4-3 and 7, if they have more points, then they win.
Right.
So that's the good news. So it's not all is lost because they got a point for that, and that's going to be good for them. Really good.
One of your best ever. Well, this is why I couldn't wait for you to get on the show today. I needed you, buddy. I needed you earlier when Mike had me in the corner and he was taking cheap shots at me. This is what I needed from you. That was unbelievable.
Yeah. Really?
Bravo.
You're going to use that?
Bravo.
You're going to use that as your drop the mic moment? Really? Really, good. Stoke? Really?
That's my guy. That's my guy.
Hey, if we were going into this thinking that Gabe's return was either going to single-handedly boost the Avalanche to a victory or single-handedly cost them a victory, then you just weren't reading this return the right way. Okay, so any talk about the idea that Gabe's return was some sort of distraction, well, then tell me how that explains directly. His return directly explains how, for the second straight game, after leading at the 50-minute mark of the hockey game, you blow a third-period lead. Tell me how his return explains how they went 0 for 6 on the power play. Tell me how his return affected them not scoring on a power play late in Game 2 that could have won the game, and explain to me how his return last night caused them not to be able to take advantage of a 4-minute double minor power play that had 3 minutes and 21 seconds left on it to start overtime, how they weren't able to convert on that. That's all because Gabe came back. Tell me how Gabe.
We didn't. Now you're exaggerating, Mike. Come on, Mike.
Tell me
how
Gabe's return. No. Tell me how Gabe's return directly affected Cale Makar playing way below his standard in this series to this point. Tell me how Gabe Landeskog's return explains Mackenzie Blackwood giving up the overtime game winner, a goal that, I'm sorry, that save is supposed to be made. There's no way you should be beat up above your left shoulder, up against the post like that. You should be guarding the post. There's no way when all the play is on that side of the ice. It wasn't a cross ice pass that had you shifting from right to left and you get beat over your left shoulder. Everything was in front of you on that right side coming down the ice. And for him to be beat over the left shoulder like that, inside the post, that's a bad goal. So you tell me all these things. You're telling me Gabe Landeskog's return explains all that.
We didn't say that. We were not blaming the loss. You tried to get us to blame the loss on it. That's not what we said. So, you know.
Yeah, but you're saying
the fact that you're, goalie played great. I mean, he played great.
You got to make that save.
Okay, I mean,
you're going to win an overtime hockey game in the playoffs. You got to make that save.
He hasn't been the issue here. How about scoring more than one goal? All I know is it hasn't helped. I'm not putting the blame on the loss on him, on Gabe and his return. I'm just saying it's different. This is odd. For a guy to return after 3 years and you drop him, he hasn't played, and you just drop him to the third game at home. Is this what they wanted? Were they waiting for it to be at home? You can't say it's not. It wasn't a distraction at all. This is all the talk, and so I just know it hasn't helped the Avs, and that's the issue.
But I'm leaning on you two guys, and I say this with all seriousness, all the joking and busting chops aside. Does his return, Mark, emotionally distract the players going out and playing their game and doing their job?
No, I don't think so. Once the puck's dropped, no. But listen, did it take you out of your routine? Was there a potential of him starting game 2 in Dallas that got flipped with who'd they start instead?
Miles Wood.
Miles Wood? Is that a distraction? Does it take you out of your routine? Does it, you put the ceremonial thing on there, then you start a different lineup with him in there? Like, does that – I'm just asking. Does that take you as a hockey player? Because, like, when it's bulletin board material, for instance, Mike, and we see it, and we walk into a locker room, and we're bulletin board, like, it doesn't help you when you play the game on Sunday, right? But if it does help you prepare on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and focus you more, then that's a benefit. Just like if you're distracted for several days coming into it and you don't know the plan is, and we're going to shift up the lineups and we're going to do all those things that you guys said was not a big deal, we do it all the time, like that would, like, I don't want to be out of my routine. So does that affect the way you played a little bit? Maybe. I don't know. But Stokes and I, like, on a serious note, Stoke and I's point about Landy coming back, and I thought it was a huge boost, and I thought it was really cool that he came back, but for it to take you out of your routine and for you to play the little hockey games that they play, lower leg injury and upper body, contusion or whatever it is, the little games they play, and then to play the little game you did in Dallas where he came out for warm-ups and it said that they looked like he was going to start and Miles Wood was going to be down, and then they flipped it around, right? And now all of a sudden you come out and you have the lights blare and everybody goes, Landy, 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 and then you start him with a different lineup, and then you shove him back down to the third line. Does that distract you at all during the week? I'm just going to ask you, would that, if you're a hockey player, would that be a distraction during the week?
No, because back game 2, everybody in that room knew Gabe wasn't going to play. That wasn't a distraction. And then last night, it was one shift.
You sound like an Avalanche apologist.
No, I'm not.
Right?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I guess somebody who knows hockey has to tell two football guys what they don't know. And I'm telling you, you're making a big point about, he started on one line, he played on another line. You do realize that hockey teams and hockey coaches change up line combinations all the time, not only from one game to the next, but during games. You know it happens all the time.
But why does it happen, Mike? Because one guy on that line is not playing well. One guy on that line, they're not meshing. Something is not working between that line. They're having a lack of production. Something doesn't fit.
It was one shift.
They change up the line.
It was one shift.
They change